Hi, I'm Sharaad Kuttan and welcome to Let's Talk, the show that brings you the most important conversations in art, culture and ideas. And today we're going to be looking at Sabah and the intersection between politics and culture, especially popular culture, with the recent release of a video called Sabah Bangkit. And my guest today is Clinton Liew, aka MKNK. He's a singer, I guess a rapper. I'm not quite sure. I'm going to ask him exactly how he describes himself. But he was a collaborator on Sabah Bangkit. With us, I have Vilashini Somiah, a regular guest on Let's Talk, and also consider this. She is an anthropologist with the Gender Studies program at Universiti Malaya, and also recently co-author of a comic available online called What is MA63 and Why is it important to Sabah and Sarawak? So thank you very much to both of you for joining me today. Clinton, you were on actually Consider This about a week or so ago when the video first came out. For people who haven't caught Sabah Bangkit, and I know over 100,000 people have actually seen it online now. Tell us a little bit about what that project is.
It's a project for the youth, and it's by the youth as well. So it's basically about us just empowering whoever, like the younger Sabahans, and letting them know that there's hope when we work together. That, this project was a collaborative effort, and to see people coming together and working on a project, like this is the outcome of it, and like how it kind of went viral, and the beauty that comes out from it. How we even led to this show. So
absolutely. Okay, so what is important about it is that you're a singer, and many of the people who collaborate with this project are in fact well-known artists, singers themselves. Tell us a little bit about the musical dimension or the visual dimension of the video, because I think that's very important in the story you want to tell today.
Musically, we actually did an interview yesterday as well, where they asked us that did we try to enforce any traditional elements into it or anything like that. But I think musically, I didn't produce the song myself. I was just like a small part of it, and the producers just tried to, from what I understand, the producers were trying to create something that just kind of gave you goosebumps from the minute you listen to it. And we watched a lot of reaction videos as well to the song and the music video, where some of them even cried watching the music video. So I was thinking that was what we were aiming for. And video-wise, it was shot by our good friend actually, Hantu Studio, so shout out to Hantu. They did a lot of really amazing music videos. So the director, Hanafi, has a really great eye for these kind of things, and I think he just captured the whole element of Sabah. I don't know, do you guys feel like you felt like what it's like to be a Sabahan through that video, like sort of?
All right, okay, that's interesting. So Villa is our own reaction video now, and she's going to tell us, as an anthropologist, I mean, putting on, maybe you got two hats, right? You're a Sabahan, as you are Clinton, and you're also an anthropologist. Tell us, did you get goosebumps? Is that, how did it feel to you?
Oh, I did, especially when the beat dropped, as you'd say it, right?
Yeah, as the beat dropped.
I think what's really powerful about Sabah Bangkit was that it started off with the state anthem, and you see the musicians and the singers sort of embracing nature, singing by a stream. And it was really clear and very beautiful, the meaning behind the state anthem. But when it sort of bled into the actual song, I felt that Sabah Bangkit had a very interesting, very good tune, very good beat, very, very youth-friendly, of course. And so I think, you guys certainly achieved that. But more importantly for me was that when you did watch Sabah Bangkit, as somebody who knows the Sabah landscape, someone who understands what's going on digitally and on the ground, is that there were many representations that are not always seen and recognized. So many young people, landscape-wise, you utilize Sabah really very well, but also some very important landscapes as well, right? There was Mount Kinabalu, the state courthouse, things like that, which you wouldn't otherwise sort of see in normal music videos.
Well, I would have thought Mount Kinabalu is kind of a staple, like it's on the state flag, for God's sake.
Right,
I mean, so it's like it's always there, right? But what is it that what wasn't visible before that this video makes visible? I mean, from your point of view, Clinton, were there people who are often in the margins who are now suddenly brought into the center?
I would kind of say that because in a way where there are a lot of talents that are involved, where there are like experienced ones and least, I wouldn't say just least experienced, but maybe not as famous. But we coming together, and I think it brings light to everyone. And on top of that, when you ask about how it's shot differently, I would say it's pretty cool to see like youth, you know, hanging out and like singing the anthem, like especially on the river. I don't know, that kind of just gave me goosebumps because the producers from KGE, Anas and Aizat and Wan, they never told me that there was going to be the beginning, the intro of the Sabah State Anthem in that version.
Yeah.
And when
and what's interesting is that the potential for that song itself, that you say it's a youth anthem, that it might in fact and potentially can play a role as a new anthem for the state as well, because it seems to have a message that's broader than just young people. And I wondered about this, Villa, about the other representations, because we know about the ethnic divisions within Sabah and the question of the coastal cities, west and east. Right. Tell us a little bit about that. What did you read in the video that maybe many of us missed?
Well, leading up to the state elections that are coming up next week is that you find that a lot of the political parties are playing up this idea on unity politics. We're united. We're one people. But I think saying it is different from seeing it, right? For years and years, Sabah has had these narratives form about the East versus the West. And these are very, very powerful narratives that have been incredibly destructive, I would say. So, I think one thing that Sabah Bangkit did right was show this sort of representation of gender, of different indigenous communities, young people really occupying places in Sabah. For a long time, as an anthropologist, one of the criticisms I've always made about doing work in Sabah is, where are the youth? Have they become passive or have they left? And I think, producing something like this gives you the idea or the spirit that, no, they haven't left. They've woken up.
Okay, we'll come back to the youth later, but I want to talk about the ethnic divisions, because the video also has a couple of languages, and at least Malay and English that I recognize, and I don't know if there are any other languages in there, because I don't know all the registers of Sabah language. But from your point of view, Clinton, what about the ethnic mix? I mean, what about that politics of East versus West for you?
For me, I didn't really see anything. I didn't read into it because when we created it, there was no political mindset to it. We were all just creating something for the youth. And I think from what you mentioned about the Sabah youth being passive, this was kind of like saying we are not actually passive and we are trying to do something to make a change, but not in the political sense, but just to say like, let's come together and let's work together to create something bigger. And
but you also described what you were against, and you gave some of those lines. And I know you keep saying they're not political, but they're very political about corruption, for instance, and the frustrations you feel about voting and then having that undermined, right? So that's deeply political, right? I mean, wouldn't you concede that it is political?
In a sense, because I guess when Anas told us to write about the song, it was at a time when there was a lot of things happening and where the government was dissolved. So I was really confused as a citizen, because for me, I feel like I don't know enough. That's why I think writing those lyrics is more of a reminder for me and the youth to really try to learn a little bit more so we know what's going on. Because right now I'm lost, I'm clueless, right? So that was where the frustration was coming from. And I just want to know, like, how should I react to this? And what are the next steps? What are the right steps to take?
Right, okay. We're going to take a short break. Right. We'll be back with more on Let's Talk. Welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm Sharaad Kuttan. With me, Vilashini Somiah, anthropologist, and Clinton Liew, singer involved in the Sabah Bangkit video. And we're talking about the intersection between culture and politics. And we ended on the question of, what's political, not political. Villa, how do you see it? I mean, what is the politics in, aside from the intentions of the producer and the artist involved, what do you read that's political in this video?
All right, I'm going to be really frank here.
Yeah.
I felt that Sabah Bangkit was incredibly political, or at least it produced political
Like the thought of
wavelengths, right? I
Okay.
mean, it was putting out this potential to open political discourse, simply because when we use ideas like, rise up, Bangkit, for example, or we should stop from the corrupted from robbing us, right? We should receive
Your
what is
line.
ours, right? Yeah, these very powerful lines, and I think to say that it wasn't political, it may not have been that, I think, in its inception, but certainly on the receiving end, I think it has a very powerful political ability to transform thought.
Right.
That being said as well, I think when we do say that, we're not political, it seems to be a position that we take because there's this Pavlovian effect that young people want to say, I'm not political, because, we've been taught to say that. And
Okay, and to disassociate yourself from party politics, right? So you can be political without necessarily be partisan and, in support of one side or the other. But, Clinton, when we listen to the first part of the song, and it's the state anthem, the state anthem itself produces very interesting ideas, right? One of it is Sabah Merdeka, right? And what does that mean? In the context of Sabah as a territory within Malaysia, is that something that you as a young person or the people around you think about? I mean, is that, somebody who's in fact lived on both sides of the federation, both in Sabah and, the last couple of 10 years.
You mean talking about like Merdeka?
Yeah, what does it mean? What exactly does that word
Merdeka
mean for
mean?
you? Yeah, or Bangkit. What is Bangkit? It's a call to
Bangkit means rise up.
yes, but
Yeah.
rise up against who and
Okay.
for what?
So if I may clarify the whole
Sure.
thing, I think from what you mentioned before, this is going away from your question a little bit, but I just want to go to the roots of where the song came from. So Anas, one of the main producers, he married a Sabahan, and that's how I knew him. And he has a daughter now, and so this song was actually for her. And they want to create new opportunities through this song, whereas a lot of Sabahan talents have to come to KL to be able to kind of find a career, and myself included.
yeah.
And it is a little bit tough there. So that's why Anas saw that, and he wanted to create something so that when his daughter grows up, there will be more opportunities for her, right? Do we continue? Okay.
Right.
And then to elaborate on that, when it comes to making music, making art, we always have our own point of view or our own, the root of it, of where it comes from. But that's the power of art. Well, however, or whatever we put out, at the end of the day, when it's out, it's not up to us to say what it is anymore. We can say as much as we want, like this is what this is, but it's up to everyone's interpretation of it. And
Right.
that is the power.
Right. And that's very interesting because this video is part of a whole field of other videos and cultural products, that also kind of try to enunciate a sense of identity and belonging. So, original Sabahan, as one of those examples. Tell us, Villa, but how do you read Sabah Bangkit against original Sabahan, against all the other attempts to articulate some notion of identity, Sabahan identity?
Well, some people may see it as counter products, right? One particular piece of work is there to sort of counter what another piece of work has produced. But I sort of see it as progression and growth, right? Original Sabahan came out about, 2 years ago? About a year, 2 years ago. Really to articulate what it meant to be Sabahan. It's about Sabahan pride. But, at the same time, it also meant it was locale specific. I'm Sabahan, and these are the makings of the original Sabahan, which I represent. I come from this particular area.
And this was essentially Karazan Dusun Murut.
Yeah, I mean,
in
to
its
some
identity.
extent, it spoke to the KDM people, youth, communities, and of course, people who, other indigenous groups who didn't fit that mold felt like, well, what about us, right? And so there were many other products that came out of it. Original Sabahan Bajau or original Sabahan Rungo, so what have you. I mean, we're talking about a state with 40 odd ethnic groups, right?
It's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. Sarawak would say the same about themselves. But I think when Sabah Bangkit comes along, this isn't a counter narrative to what original Sabahan is. It's a progression from that, I think, and we have to look at it in that sense. A decade back, given the fact that we never had the sort of digital technology to allow for this, I don't think youth would have been as empowered to produce this. This gives them an avenue to say what they need to say.
Right. Okay, so Clinton, for you, now that it's out in the world and people are reading it in different ways, and you have anthropologists like Villa, putting a particular spin on what she thinks is being produced in terms of meaning, do you see associations or links to things that perhaps you didn't see initially? What is happening in your mind about where Sabah Bangkit is occupied, especially in this very politically heated time for Sabah?
Yeah, I don't know, because there's, I think because of the timing of the release, I don't know if they actually planned for it. I never had a conversation with them about that, but I just think that it did escalate into something that none of us foresee. At least when we started this whole project, Anas made it really clear that, okay, we are not going to make it political, it's really just for the youth. So it's interesting to see where it led to, even the response that we are getting. But yeah,
okay, what is the response? Tell us, give us a bit more detail. Are older people taking to this? What are older people saying about this video?
For me, I'm more of an artist, so my response, the way I see it is more like, how the views are, what are the reaction, like not too much into the political side, because I think there's so much going on that I just don't know how to keep up. But from what I see, like the numbers, it's like a lot bigger than anyone expected.
Right. And what about you, Villa? Very quickly, the kind of responses that you've been hearing.
Well, I've noticed that they've certainly gotten traction with a much younger audience. I think in circles, in bubbles where people who are interested in Sabah politics, they seem to be older. I think there might be a slight disconnect. It's a little bit harder to grasp. There is an appreciation for the effort, certainly, but I think in terms of narrative, it can come across as maybe not enough, or maybe too youth-friendly, which I think is unfair, because every audience is important in the larger scheme of things, and I think Sabah Bangkit is speaking to an audience that have otherwise maybe not had an opportunity to vent or speak up or have platforms for themselves. So certainly, while maybe the older Sabahans may think a little bit differently about where Sabah Bangkit is coming from, I think across the board, people are very appreciative of the effort.
Okay, Clinton, do you think young people, is Sabah society generally one that values older people over younger people, doesn't like, young people, it's a society that doesn't like young people to speak up or speak out of turn?
I think maybe there is a little bit of that, but like change kind of takes time as well, and we just need to do it a little bit more and we need to, I think with Sabah Bangkit, it shows that we are slowly learning and we are slowly growing.
We being Sabahans or young
youth,
people?
Yeah, the Sabahan youth, and we just want to ask for respect from everyone. Not to say that we are not giving that, but to just say that this is the art that we can create.
Or recognition.
Yeah, the recognition, I think that's the exact word for it.
Okay, we'll take another break and we'll be back with more on Let's Talk. Welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm Sharaad Kuttan. With me, Clinton Liew. He's a singer from Sabah and also a collaborator on the Sabah Bangkit video. And also Vilashini Somiah, anthropologist with the Gender Studies program at Universiti Malaya. Also recently co-author of a comic available online called What is MA63 and Why is it important to Sabah and Sarawak? Interesting, because when it comes to political elites and when we talk to political analysts, MA63, the Malaysian Agreement 1963, is very important.
Yeah.
The question is it important to anybody other than this particular group of people?
Right.
And if it's being popularized, how is it being popularized? And what is it that your particular effort in this comic is an attempt to do? Is it attempting to popularize the discourse of MA63?
Can I go back to something that he said earlier on about being a young Sabahan, watching the state government sort of collapse and feeling very confused and very unsure and maybe uninformed about a lot of things. I'm privileged in the sense that I had a lot of time to stay at university, study all these years for, on issues that really have impacted the socio-political state of Sabah in that sense. MA63 being one. And here's the thing, something like MA63, that's subjugated knowledge. That's a knowledge for the elite. If you're educated, you've had time to talk about this, you've spent years speaking to other, say, elite members of society, you'll be able to talk about this like the back of your hand. And if you go down to the ground and ask a young person, do you know anything about MA63? You'll be lucky if they say, I heard of it. So the entire idea, working together very closely with Timothy James from Sarawak and New Narrative, they're really fantastic. And they
Timothy
said,
being the illustrator.
the illustrator is that how do you make accessible very difficult topics for a bunch of young people? And it's not just about a bunch of 20-year-olds. You're talking about 15-year-olds, right?
Yeah.
We're just going to keep producing disempowered young Sabahans and Sarawakians even, or anybody from the periphery, if you maintain that education and very important parts of history are subjugated. And so making a comic, designing it, simplifying the language allows for people to have access to a conversation they never did in the past.
Okay, that may be, but do you think it's important to you, Clinton, to understand MA63, or is it more important for you in your professional life or your personal life to think about where music is going globally and how you might plug yourself into that?
Yeah, I guess the latter would be what I would used to think about, but going on interviews like this is what helped me understand that I need to learn more about it. I think what you're doing is really cool to be able to help us to understand it.
Right,
And like you say, like MA63 is something I didn't even know about until you mentioned it just now, and it might sound like maybe I haven't really educated myself on like subjects like this, but it was just never brought to my attention, and it's not something my group of friends would talk about.
But maybe it's because
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
important to you, and there's
Yeah,
nothing
maybe.
wrong for it not to be important to you, right? We always assume that, if it's missing in the history books, that somehow we all go around the world, our lives with this big hole in us, but maybe it doesn't, because we fill it up with other things, and what is important to you, and that's what
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand.
Right.
What is important to young people in terms of their, how they build their own identity? And
Okay.
is politics or Malaysian history that important to them, sitting in Kundasang, sitting in Kota Kinabalu? Is it something else?
I think definitely history is definitely important. One of my friends told me a man who never studies history will be able to repeat what has happened
Yeah.
before, and a man who is not educated, man who is educated will see the same thing happening again, right? So I think for me, that's why I feel like we need to at least learn about what's going on. But going back to your question about what is important for us, for me especially, my vision is to be able to help Sabah become a creative hub. And I am lucky enough to be able to work with a bunch of people, including KGE, the studio which produced this, to want to create like opportunities for the people there. And that is my vision, what I never had 10 years ago, and why I had to fly all the way here to be able to achieve what I have today. Why not have it in Sabah too?
And why not? I mean, so is at the heart of this, Villa, the question of economic deprivation, uneven development, that doesn't allow Sabah to be autonomous, at least culturally, and in terms of how it sort of wants to position itself within the Malaysian context. I mean, how do you see this conversation going now that we have had Sabah Bangkit, now that we have a state election on coming up? What's next beyond whoever wins the state power?
Right. Anybody who goes to Sabah is going to see one very, very obvious thing. Sabah is a land that is so rich in resources, and this is a cliche, and it has not had the development it deserves simply because it is a state that is just, it's poor. The people are living in poverty, especially if you're not. Even if you are in the urban center, you're not living to your fullest potential because there's a lack of resources, any kind of resources. And I'm not just talking about money, right? And of course, true enough, you're absolutely right. Not every young person is going to be interested in history and politics and the economy. They don't have to be. But what's important is you will know that Sabah as a state and its people have reached a point where they can be more content when they have access to it and they can choose to say, I'm not interested. At this point, you don't even have access to it. And I think for a lot of young people, that's the argument. I want to be a singer or create beautiful art. I have that talent, and yet I have to beg, or I've got to hustle in such a way where I've got to pay so much more for a flight and figure out how to, get about my way in Kuala Lumpur.
But that's the beauty in it.
That shouldn't be the situation for us, but we recognize that with, some effort from the different avenues, is that many hands make light work, right? And when you're able to put into play these kind of scenarios, it means that people now have the right or have the choice to say, thank you very much for the access, I choose not to. And that for me is progress.
Right. And what would progress be for you, Clinton? Where would you like to see the conversation go, at least, in the next couple of years?
Just more opportunities for us. In a political point of view, I won't be able to say much, but for the creative side, I would want to say where, having people to just come to Sabah and maybe even having performances there, even for all the performers there, they are severely underpaid compared to KL, and it's horrible because that's one of the reasons why it's hard to make a living as a musician. But I would like to see them getting better pay, them getting better opportunities, and even better avenues to be able to do things. But especially now with the internet, it's so much easier to do that. Maybe we just need better education of how to exploit that better.
Okay. And do you have a project coming out? Are we going to be? Are you on the cusp of another music video? Are you writing music? What's happening?
I'm actually releasing a new song every month, and I just released my own rendition of original Sabahan. You can check that out.
Fun.
So okay, so it's original Sabahan,
By
MKNK.
Yes.
All right,
But
okay.
it's an R&B-ish, lo-fi kind of version. I just wanted to give it my own kind of twist. Yeah.
Okay, so lyrics are also kind of tweaked.
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay, look forward to that. So original
I have my
Sabahan.
own verse. Yeah. You
Okay.
can check it out on Spotify everywhere.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you both for being on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so I've been speaking to Vilashini Somiah. She is an anthropologist with the Gender Studies program at Universiti Malaya. Also a recent co-author of a recent comic available online called "What is MA63 and why is it important for Sabah and Sarawak?" Also to Clinton Liew, aka MKNK, is a singer and collaborator on the Sabah Bangkit video, which of course you can see on YouTube. I don't know, 150,000 views or something.
Well, over 200,000.
Over 200,000 views at the moment. Okay, that's all we have for Let's Talk this week. I'm Sharaad Kuttan, only on Astro 1.